Welcome to Meet the Masters of Insurance webinar series. I'm Lawrence Geller, the founder of For Advisors Only. This is the 30th of what we expect to be a great many webinars with Canadians who have dedicated their careers to learning the art and science of insurance sales and service. Webinars in this series are scheduled through the end of this year. In fact, we're now booking for January of next year, and new interviews are being added to the schedule daily. Over the years, I've observed that every successful insurance agent who I know has succeeded differently. Whether they're in the business together, they're related. This is what makes the sale and servicing of insurance one of the best careers that I can imagine. It's possible to become a success in our business with diligence, integrity, and experience. With this webinar series, we intend to prove that any type of person can succeed with time and hard, thoughtful work. Our goal is to create a video record for each of these masters of insurance so that some of their expertise and experience will be available to anyone who'd like to learn from them now or into the future. Today, we have Mr. Dale Enns with us. Dale has enjoyed a rich and gratifying career as financial and estate planner. The business he created, Blaeberry and Estate Planning, is a boutique practice serving the needs of a wide spectrum of entrepreneurs, executives, and professionals in Calgary, Alberta. As part of his value proposition, Dale says this about his practice: "We work with great people, discussing important things, contributing to their improvement and growth." Dale is an effective financial advisor to his clients, as well as a trusted friend, ally, and confidant. I can say personally that Dale is also a trusted ally, friend, and confidant to many people in the insurance business, and not just in the West, across Canada. Concurrent with his professional work, Dale has been an active volunteer in the community and within our profession. He is a 50-year member of Advocis, and he's served in a variety of volunteer leadership roles at the local and national level, including terms on the National Board of Directors. He led the Century Initiative at its inception and helped raise a substantial amount of capital to future-proof the association. He has a 30-year association with the Calgary Foundation, including a 90-year term on its board of directors. He concluded his board service as the foundation's chair and remained involved in other roles until March of this year. In 2018, Dale joined the board of C-Space Projects Inc., of the social venture real estate developer, whose 5-year project, C-Space Marta Loop, provides arts and community groups with space to pursue their mission and purpose in a beautifully redesigned, renovated, and opened to the community historic school. While on this board, Dale served as chair and concluded his service in May of this year. In both his professional and volunteer work, Dale brings humor, sincerity, and integrity, and I think you'll see that clearly today. Dale is also a keen cyclist and downhill skier, and he has dabbled in a variety of outdoor activities throughout his life, including motorcycling, hiking, sailing, golf, Western riding, and triathlon. He has the patient and loyal support of his wonderful spouse, Kathy, and between them, they've raised a daughter who is on the cusp of obtaining a PhD in sports psychology. Jillian Wise will be interviewing Dale today. We look forward to Dale's comments. Over to you, Julian.
Good morning, Dale, and thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. It's such a treat to be with somebody who has such depth, breadth, and integrity, and such a huge impact in our field. So welcome this morning, and thanks for being here.
Julian, you flatter me. Thank you. I could say exactly the same thing about you.
Whoa, a mutual admiration society. But let's not start there. Let's start with how you got started in the business, Dale.
As Lawrence has indicated, it's been a 50-year journey. I started in 1974 with the London Life Insurance Company. I was recruited off campus at the University of Calgary by kind of a legend in our business. Everybody in Canada knows George Sigurdsson, and at that time, Siggy was in the sales development assistant role, I think, with London Life. I don't know how they ever wheeled him into management, because he certainly didn't belong there. He returned to sales and has had an unbelievable career. But at that time, he was a charismatic and magnetic recruiter on campus. And I have to say, the minute I met him, I was taken in. I mean, he was charismatic, he was warm, he was welcoming, he was energetic, the brightest smile in the whole wide world. And somehow or another, he coaxed me into the series of interviews that London Life had for insurance sales, of all the things in the world. I can't imagine why I would have even had an open mind to that, but there it was. So Siggy introduced me to a local manager who is also a legend, I believe, in the industry in Canada, by the name of Don Glover, who was previously the president of LUAC, and he led the board. He was pivotal in so many initiatives that Advocis and LUAC were behind. So I got to meet two of the all-time greats in the business, and like Velcro, they kind of attracted me, and I stuck. So that was the start.
So, so were you a big city boy, filled with confidence? And,
No, I was anything but, Julian. I've laughed about this often. I graduated from high school in a town with about 270 people living in it. That was the biggest town I'd ever lived in my life. I spent my final 4 years of school in Stannard, Alberta, a little town 50 miles east of Calgary. And when I came to Calgary, really, I was about as unworldly as one could be. The furthest I'd ever traveled was probably Penticton, BC, and to the west, and maybe Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to the east. So I was very much a small town boy with a very, very small view of the world around me when I went to university. And that really didn't change all that much during the course of university, because of course I didn't go very far. It was a small world at that time.
how did you possibly find clients coming from a place with 270 population to a big city of Calgary?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, or funny you asked the question to focus on my little hometown. I think I did almost no business in Stannard. The very idea that I would solicit insurance sales among my former high school friends, farmers, and so on, was quite difficult for me to do. I just didn't feel at all at ease soliciting within that particular cohort. So I kind of hung out with the folks that I graduated with out of commerce at the University of Calgary, and I'd knock on doors, and we were well trained with a product solution focused sales approach. London Life was the best at training in that regard, and I just went to see some of my old university schoolmates, and barely survived for a significant period of time, probably easily 2 years or 3 years, barely survived in the business, just hanging on, suffering from imposter syndrome, and not a very good prospector, and not much of a natural market. But somehow I made it through, and here we are.
Wow, what disciplines did you develop at an early stage that helped you eventually excel?
Well, you know, I was a kid when I started in the business. I was only 21 years old. So to suggest that I had any disciplines at all would be a bit of an exaggeration. But I was kept, to a large extent, I was kept on track by my management relationship with Don Glover. We would meet no less frequently than weekly, but probably almost daily. And Don was as supportive a guy as you can possibly imagine. I think he recognized that I didn't have a natural market. I wasn't a terrific prospector. I was more introverted than I was extroverted. So he was always there supporting, coaching, encouraging. And gradually, over time, we just worked the plan that we had been taught at London Life. Basically, pick up the phone, call folks, seek referrals to people who are like-minded, and if you can, hang on and survive. So, I was in the office every day. I worked at nights. I just did anything and everything to survive, and struggled through those first couple of years, and ultimately kind of got some momentum that kept me going through to 2024.
What over the course of 50 years have you developed as your unique abilities?
That was a question that you pre-populated for me, Julian, and you encouraged me to give some thought to that. I don't want to come off like I'm an aw shucks, gee, I'm so modest, but I have a hard time kind of settling on that. But I think what I can do when I'm with people, when I'm in front of people, is I can develop a measure of trust and belief that I am sincere and that they can rely on me. So I think I have an ability. This may be a mistake in self-perception, but I think I have the ability to build a relationship with people that with which they are at ease. And I think that would be my unique ability. I think I can uniquely develop close relationships one-on-one that are intimate and that are trusting and that last over time. I hope that's true. I don't know that to be true, but I believe it is.
Probably your humility reinforces it, would be my opinion.
Well, thank you. I learned a lot of humility living in small town Alberta, believe me.
I'll bet. How has the demographic of your clients changed? Actually, one question for you. Do you think trust is given or earned?
Oh, I don't know. That's a trick question. I think it might be both. But certainly when we present ourselves as advisors to our clients, first and foremost, we have to earn that trust. We have to demonstrate that we are trustworthy. Exactly how you do that, I just simply don't know. But I think that maybe you earn trust with your clients based on the degree to which you are self-interested. So I've tried to present to my clients that they're the most important person in the exchange, and that my interest is in them. My interest isn't necessarily in pumping my own tires and telling folks how great I am. It's about them. So I learned a phrase called appreciative inquiry. I don't know, and apparently it was some sort of a real life practice that people would try to demonstrate. But it's just asking questions that demonstrate that you care. And I would think that the greats in the business, people like Siggy and yourself and Lawrence and others, ask questions that demonstrate you actually care. And having asked that question, you listen to the reply. And so I think that begins the process of building trust. And then ultimately, I believe that clients will give their trust to you, that you will have earned it and they will have granted it. But I think it's up to us to earn the trust at the start, and then hopefully we've demonstrated enough integrity and sincerity that the clients will indeed reciprocate with their trust.
Thank you. How has your methodology changed over time since you started 50 years ago?
Thank you for asking that. It's interesting, at least to me. It's interesting in the early years when we were rookies with London Life. And by the way, I've got the greatest regard for that financial institution. They gave me my start, and were it not for that institution, my life would not be what it is today. And I'm pretty happy with where I am today. Thank you very much. So London Life was wonderful to me. But what they did in the early days was they taught us how to sell. They gave us basic selling skills, very, very fundamental stuff. How to ask for permission to talk to somebody on the phone, the blocking and tackling, how to obtain a referral, all of the blocking and tackling. But the training was primarily focused on a solution. We were solution-focused salespeople. Now, we weren't hucksters. I don't believe we were, but we were product-focused. Around 1998, maybe 97, I was at a CALU meeting. And up until that point in time, I was still a product or solution-focused salesperson. But I was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with that model. I thought it was a bit shallow, and I was looking for something that was deeper with my clients than just simply filling a product requirement and then using that as the anchor for the relationship. And there was a guy at CALU who spoke. His name was Paul Brooks. I don't know, maybe Julian, you were there. I suspect Lawrence was at that meeting. And Paul Brooks introduced a concept called values-based planning, values-based estate planning. And it was one of those moments where as he started to speak, it kind of became clear that I needed to move from a solution-based sales approach to something that was deeper and more intimate and more authentic, I suppose. And it had to do with the values and the principles and the vision that our clients had for the future, so that we could make a contribution to that what was most important, which was their future and their values and their vision. So shortly after that, through London Life and what they had then branded the Wealth and Estate Planning Group, we were introduced to a guy named Scott Fithian out of Boston. Scott has now passed away, but he had been in partnership with Paul Brooks, and he had taken that values-based estate planning approach much deeper. In my mind, I credit Scott with having changed the way in which I did my business for the second half of my career, I suppose, and up until this day. And I'm so very grateful that I had a chance to meet with him, because he taught me the importance of a values-based approach, the importance of first helping our clients define their why, so that we could subsequently help them with their how. And in my mind, he was ahead of his day. And as they say, what is it? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And sure enough, Paul Brooks appeared at that CALU meeting. I took reams of notes at that during his 1-hour presentation. I just couldn't keep up. The words were spilling off the page. And then subsequently, the good fortune, the happy coincidence that we were introduced to Scott Fithian. And so that was my transition from a solution-focused salesperson to a values-based. What was I? I was a partner with my clients. Hopefully, I hate to use the term because it's been overused, but I believe I was a trusted advisor with many of my clients.
Wow.
Long answer. I'm sorry about the long answer.
Don't be sorry about the long answer. It was brilliant. What is your why?
It's changing, Julian. I'm in the very late stages of my career, and I'm in the very late stages of transitioning my practice to an associate, a colleague who I've been extremely fortunate to develop a friendship and a business relationship with. So I'm actually in a period of transition myself. I now am on the cusp of gaining 100% control over my calendar. And that is quite intimidating now, because up until this point in my life, I wouldn't say I haven't had control, but I've given over control to various endeavors, both professional and personal. So at the current time, I would say that my why is discovering my why.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm really in that transition phase in my life.
Good answer. You're talking. I heard you have done a great deal of community service and volunteering, and I'd like you to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'll credit all of that opportunity in my life, that part of my life. I'll credit that to the agency system that I grew up in. There was a gentleman in the agency that I started in named Peter Jekyll, and Peter was a tremendous insurance advisor, one of the most respected people in the Calgary community, and he was just such a fine gentleman. And he came to me one day and said, there's an outfit called the Calgary Foundation that's doing some terrific work. I think you might enjoy participating in them. Would you like me to make an introduction? And he did. And I wound up volunteering with their professional advisors committee, which was intended to do some educating with professional advisors as to what a community foundation is and how it contributes to both the well-being of a community, but how it serves philanthropists and not-for-profit organizations. So Peter had been a volunteer with them, and he kind of led me to their door. I did a bunch of ongoing work, just kind of in the trenches, doing whatever I was told to help spread the word among professional advisors, and it led me to an invitation to join their board in 2006. And the Community Foundation is an entity which is an organization where I've got the tattoo on my ass. I've been a volunteer with them for so long, and it's a terrific. It's a terrific community institution, I suppose, that manages a large pool of capital that is around for in perpetuity. It does not have its articles of association do not have a dissolution paragraph. It can't be dissolved except by an act of the government of Alberta, and after the Board of Stewards have requested it to be dissolved, which is interesting. So it's a perpetuity, and it serves the needs of charities throughout Calgary and the broader community. And I just got connected with them. I began to understand their mission in my head, and then I began to feel it in my heart. And I just felt that the ethic and the principles of the organization completely align with me. That it works perfectly with me. So I got involved with the Calgary Foundation in the community. Subsequently, after my board work was completed, we have term limits, so I termed out on the board, spent some time with the Major and Signature Grants Committee up until this year, and concurrently became involved with an entity that the Calgary Foundation had started called C-Space Projects. And I've always found the community work to be tremendously rewarding. It's very different from any work that I do professionally. I've never joined a club or become involved with any entity with the intention of expanding my business. And maybe that shows a lack of ambition or maybe vision on my part, but I just never wanted to color my volunteer work in the community with self-interest. So I've always tried to keep that very, very separate. And I think I've done so successfully, to the extent I think that I've maintained my reputation as somebody who just volunteers for the purposes of advancing the mission of the entity and no more. So the community work has been tremendously rewarding. It's interesting because all of my community work has come to an end in the spring of 2024. So I'm back to the earlier question that you posed. I'm trying to discover my why.
Huh. And you have been heavily involved also in Advocis and industry organizations down through time, which culminated in them honoring you, I think, last year with their highest award.
Yeah. I was tremendously flattered and humbled by receiving the J.G. Taylor Award last year with my co-recipient Cindy Bowden. It was really a really tremendous honor. My friends Chris Burchard and Bob Flashacker had put my name forward, and through the vetting process, I was granted that award. So it was very nice, and I think it maybe recognizes that over the years, I did some things with Advocis, and prior to that, the Life Underwriters Association, and that goes again back to Don Glover, George Sigurdsson, that culture of that time where participating in the Life Underwriters Association, which ultimately was renamed Advocis, was kind of a natural thing. And the agency that I was part of prided itself on volunteerism within the association. So we were encouraged, cajoled, pushed, whatever, to devote some time and energy to the mission of the association. And I got involved early days, tickets and attendance guy, became involved in the local association, was president of the outfit here in Calgary at one point along the way, and then was invited to serve on the board of directors. And then one day, many years later, Lawrence and I were in a hotel room with a bunch of other people from Advocis, trying to think about recapitalizing the entity, because at that time we were kind of in a bit of a pickle in terms of our capital reserves. And Lawrence and I are talking back and forth saying, I don't know why I can't just write a check to the outfit and be done with it, because we were kind of grouchy old men who had been volunteering so much. And that was, I think, the start of that. That's when Lawrence raised his hand and said, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we raise a bunch of money, call it the Century Initiative, and we'll put Dale in charge.
Well, in fact, the Century Initiative has rescued the current Advocis in its current dilemma.
Yeah, it really has served its purpose, I think, because it was intended to raise capital, hold it on reserve, and deal with opportunities as they present themselves, but also to be held in reserve to attend to threats to the organization. And sure enough, it's doing its work.
Well done, and thank you for that, for sure. What critical events have happened in your career that caused you to pause and evaluate your business?
Wow. Well, I think I described a critical turning point, which was that KLU meeting where Paul Brooks spoke, and that ultimately led to Scott Fithy. And that was an absolute turning point in my professional career. Another really significant turning point occurred around 1997, 1998, when London Life released the shackles on single company representation and incorporation of advisors. And it allowed advisors who kind of met certain criteria to incorporate their practices if they chose to. And that was a real big deal for us. We wanted to be, if you will, free, and it was facilitated. We became free, and that allowed me to ultimately incorporate Blaeberry Estate Planning and become an independent financial practice, my boutique firm, as I call it. And that was a pivotal moment, that opportunity to define my personal and corporate why and express it through my professional activities under my own brand. And that was a real significant moment in our career. I incorporated at the same time as a real good friend of mine who's now passed away. He was just a giant and a wonderful guy, and as big an extrovert, Julian, as you are. His name was Brad Berg, and he was a fabulous guy. And he and I shared office space for about 6 years, and we were brand new to having incorporated our practices. And gee, we had a lot of fun. It was just so great. We were just bursting. We were growing so fast, and we had confidence, and we presented ourselves to the market enthusiastically. And it was a stellar time in our career. And it all stemmed from that kind of 1997, 1998 decision that the mother corporation finally made, and we were free. It was terrific. So
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I interrupted you.
Not at all.
how did you find your company name? What is it? What is the background for?
Well, it's kind of funny. Very good friends of mine have a beautiful log cabin up in the valley, up in a valley not too far from Golden, BC, and the valley is called the Blaeberry Valley. And I just fell in love with that location. It was fantastic. John and Andrea would have Kathy and I and Georgia up to their cabin frequently, and we'd walk around in the woods. I fell in love with the place, and ultimately, with the help of a consultant, I landed on that name. So it doesn't mean much to anybody except to me.
Well, that's what matters, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Now, were you and Brad involved in Blaeberry together, or was that a separate event?
Brad and I shared office space. He ran under, I think it was Berg. I think at the time that we were together, it was Berg Tatamir. Daryl Tatamir was his partner at that time and took over Brad's practice upon Brad's death. And I ran Blaeberry Estate Planning. We had shared office space, but we were separate from each other. So his deal was his deal and my deal was my deal. And we just see each other every morning and hurl a few little epithets and insults at each other and then carry on about our day.
So at its when it was at its height, because you say you're taking control of almost 100% of your calendar now, but at its height when you were working full out, tell me about your office. Tell me how many people you had. Tell me what they did. tell me what having them allowed you to focus on.
A good question, and actually it may lead into a subsequent one that you have, Julian. Brad and I, as I said, shared office space. So there was me and there was my assistant, and that was it. When our 5-year lease came up for renewal, Bergie had grown his practice. He needed more space. So I agreed that I would move out and find my own space. And Brad would take over the balance of that lease. So he took over all that space. By that time, Bergie had his partner, Daryl, Brad, and he had 2 staff. So they were, one staff and one advisor. I was one staff and one advisor. I went out and I bought a townhouse condominium to office out of. I didn't want to lease. I didn't like renting. It's kind of like I didn't want to buy any term insurance either, and I didn't do that. So I wanted to be an owner, and I bought an office condominium that expanded the amount of physical space I had. And ultimately, it was me and 2 assistants. I had obviously all of the resources out there with that were provided by the financial institutions, including tax advisors and so on. But they were all arm's length, and I would use them as I required them. But it was always me as a solo. And Julian, I think that if I could look back on my career, I would say that a mistake I made was trying to run my business as in a silo alone. And I look back with some regret that I didn't have a partnership or an association that I could maintain with another advisor, so I could grow with them and they could they could push me. So I maintained that boutique practice all the way through to this day. I had 2 staff. That was all. I had various resources that I would use, but they were bought and paid for by the financial institutions, as you're very familiar. And that's fine as far as it goes. But I think that winds up imposing, at least in my case, I shouldn't say this is a generalization, but in my case, I think it limited my growth, and it limited my vision, because I didn't have an associate, a colleague, a partner, like, for example, Brad, pushing me and causing me to think bigger and do more. I think, frankly, one of the reasons, I guess I'm being really terribly honest here, and that may be a bit uncomfortable, but one of the reasons that I didn't have partners is probably born of insecurity. Because when you have a partner, you kind of have to show them the goods. what you are doing well and what you're not doing well. And I probably protected myself from criticism, self-criticism and otherwise, by not bringing a partner in and actually really being accountable to that partner. So if I was doing it again, Julian, I think what I would do is I would have courted Brad Berg and asked him if he and I could partner up together or develop a closer affiliation in our practice. He was a tremendous advisor. I would have grown so much more in my business if I would have had Brad poking me from behind.
Wow. So what other advice would you give to somebody who is on the path or just starting in the business?
This is not uniquely my advice. But I'm going to echo it. It's advice that Bob Fleischacker gave when he was interviewed for this Masters of Insurance series. And Fly made a really relevant point, and that is that, at least from my perception, newer people in our business are not schooled in the blocking and tackling of sales, just fundamental basic sales skills. And I don't see where there is any institutional training being provided to new advisors who are coming into the business. They have to rely on the senior principal in a firm when they come in and they work as a junior. But that senior principal in the firm isn't a good trainer, doesn't have a process, doesn't know how to share sales skills, nor do they know how to train those sales skills into their juniors, at least again, my perception. So if I was new in the business, I would seek blocking and tackling sales skills training. The technical side of our business can be learned, I won't say easily, but it can be learned. But the sales skills, I think it takes a long time to learn those unless you've had an opportunity to get trained up by somebody who really actually knows how to sell and how to explain how to sell. So I think sales skills are really at the key, and I think they're being lost. So that would be that'd be probably the big one for me. Thank you.
How did you get your name and reputation out to the people you wanted to acquire as clients over the years?
It was all one-on-one. It was all referral business, almost without fail, referral business. I didn't do any advertising. I didn't do any fancy stuff to get my name out there. Julian, I wasn't a very good self-promoter. So it would just be kind of one-on-one. I'm not like some people who can work a crowd. I don't know how to work a crowd. I'm not very good at it. Like I said, believe it or not, I am a bit introverted, and I have a hard time in a room full of people. So I didn't expand my network that way. It was one-on-one. It was asking for referrals, and then really working those referrals, because referrals were pretty precious to me. I didn't have that many of them, so you wanted to make sure you didn't mess them up. So my approach in that world, where I would obtain a referral. So if you, for example, had referred me to Lawrence, I'd get some particulars from you about how I go about contacting Lawrence and what his address might be, and then I write him a letter, an old-fashioned letter. And I don't know whoever came up with the wording from the letter, but it might have been Bruce Etherington or someone like that, who shared their best ideas with us, because that's what we do in our industry, is we share our best ideas. And I would send a letter out to Lawrence, and it would say, "Dear Lawrence, although we haven't met, I have an introduction to you from Julian Wise. During a recent conversation with Julian, he mentioned your name and spoke highly of you." Next paragraph: "I have no idea if I can be constructively helpful to you at this time, but I would like to meet to learn more about your particular situation." And then the next paragraph would be, "In anticipation of arranging a mutually convenient time to meet, I'll be calling you in the next few days. Kindest regards, Dale." I'd send the letter back to Julian. And at the bottom of that letter, Julian would write something. I have no idea what you might write, but you might write something saying, hey, I hope you don't mind me referring Dale to you. He's a really pushy guy, but what do I do? Whatever it was that you wanted to say, you were welcome to say. And then Lawrence would receive the letter a few days later, and I called Lawrence up and asked him for an appointment. So Lawrence had my letter, and he had whatever words you had written at the bottom of that letter to lend credibility. And then I would just hope like hell that that was enough for me to get the meeting, because like I said, I wasn't a great prospect. So that was how I approached my market.
Wow, that's one of 100 gems so far in the time we've spent together for people.
Well, and there was none of that was my idea. That was I learned that from some of the sales greats in our industry.
Dale, what have you run towards in your career, and what have you run away from?
Well, there was a time when I ran towards management, and I was in management for a short time because I was running away from sales, right? Early days, maybe 4 years in. It's a grind, it's hard, but I'm doing all right. And then there's this opportunity for management. So I think, well, management's got a tremendous amount, way more prestige than being a lowly product solution salesperson. And I ran away from sales and I ran to management. And I discovered very quickly that that was about as bad a job fit as I could possibly have identified. So I lasted in management, and I ran away from management, and I ran back to sales. And that was a pretty good thing. It was also good for the people who I was recruiting, because I was probably the world's worst manager. I've got some funny stories with some off-color language, which I don't think is appropriate here on this particular site, but there are funny stories about what a really bad manager I was. So I ran away from management. I ran back to sales. I ran away from a solutions-based selling approach to a much more comprehensive, intimate, values-based approach when around the turn of the century. So those were kind of big movements in my career, I think, that it kind of led me to where we are today.
Thank you. You mentioned a number of people who've had a huge impact on your life. Who else has had a big impact on your life, and why?
Well, you'd know this. I mean, you have so many friends in such a wide expanse of humanity that are connected to you in some way. I've had some really remarkable people connected to me. One of my very best friends who passed away in 2016, is that right? Yeah, 16. I was a guy named Bill McDonald. I met him in university in probably 1968 or so. Bill wound up going to work with London Life in the group department. I was in the general sales division. He was literally my best friend forever, the funniest guy you've ever met in your life, and probably the best natural salesman that I've ever met. He was stellar. And he had a huge impact on my life. He was a brilliant, wonderful, close friend, and a huge impact on my life because I learned so much about selling from Bill. He and I would go into joint interviews together. He was representing the group department. So, we were selling one product, and that was the London Life Group Insurance product. And we got lots of appointments somehow or another. And we would go in and do joint appointments, and Bill and I would be the good cop, bad cop thing. And he taught me so much about selling. We just had a riot together. One story before I carry on with the answer. We were in an appointment with a guy. It was a prominent business in Calgary. We really wanted to get the group. Bill and I were in there, and we are on fire that day doing a presentation of the benefit program that we had been allowed to quote on. So we're going back and forth. Bill's talking and I'm talking, and we're working together, and it's magical. This meeting is just magical. And after it's all over, the CEO leans back in his desk and he looks us both in the eye and he says, you know, that is the best employee benefits presentation I have ever heard. And we didn't get the group.
Oh my God.
So Bill was a huge influence. Bill changed my life in many ways, and you know the story of Julian that we told back in the late '90s. But other people that have been influential in my life have obviously been my bride. I hesitate to say this because it's such a cliche, but she really did support me through some difficult, challenging times in the early days of my career, and that's pretty obvious. But within the profession itself, I've been associated with just a huge number of really great people who have encouraged and supported and laughed with and helped me along. And Julian, I just can't tell you. If I started naming names, I could go on forever. But there was a huge number of people that I was fortunate to know and be good friends with. And they've had a huge influence. So many of them came from the original affiliation with London Life, but every bit as importantly, it was that collegial environment that I found myself in within the Life Underwriters Association, both locally and nationally, and within Advocis and so on. You know, I believe I have friends across the country. Now, those people who I think are my friends, they might say, hold it, don't call me Nancy. But I think I have friends across the country because of that collegial environment that we had the opportunity to participate in. So not a very good answer, Julian, to a very good question.
I think it's a good answer. Thank you. What do you do when you're not working, when away from the business, hobbies, travel, family?
Well, I'm a keen cyclist. It's not like I'm a good cyclist, but I'm a keen one. I really enjoy bicycling. So I'm out a few times a week on my bicycle. I'll be out tomorrow. We'll go out for a couple of hours. I hope to get out this afternoon for an hour or two. So I'm a very keen cyclist. I like downhill skiing, you know, all those normal sports things. I've got a network of friends that have kind of appeared in the cycling community that I like to spend time with. Very different from any other professional work that I might have done in the past. I'm in the gym a fair bit. And as I said, I'm in the midst of redefining who I am and what I am for the future. I've volunteered for some work with an outfit called the Venture Mentor Services of Alberta organization, which provides mentoring and coaching to entrepreneurs who've established their businesses but are looking to get to the next level. I think the work that I'll wind up doing within the VMSA is going to be very much similar to the professional work I used to do with my clients, supporting and encouraging and helping them resolve difficult issues that they've got. So that'll take up a bit of my time come the fall. And I'm currently sort of sitting back looking forward to whatever the next volunteer opportunity, community service thing might be. At this point in time, I'm beginning to feel like I have 100% control over my calendar. Not quite there yet. And that's something that I've strived for, and probably all of us have strived for through the course of our professional careers. And now that it's arrived, I have to admit it's a bit intimidating to realize that I've got complete control over the calendar. All right, you've been blessed with this gift of time. What are you going to do with it all? So I'm very much in a period of transition. I've said before, I hate the word retirement because it conjures, at least to my mind, a very negative image of somebody sitting around in their pajamas until noon and then turning on the TV to watch the Weather Channel. And that ain't me. But I don't yet know completely who I will become post-career.
Wow. What are three things that are on your bucket list still?
Well, I got one of them done.
Try to help you here, see. I'm trying
Oh,
to help.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. I got one of them done last year. Three buddies of mine and I traveled to Europe, and we did a series of big climbs on our bicycles in the Alps. And that was a real cool thing to do, a bucket list thing, because at this age and stage, you begin to realize, hopefully you've realized this before, that your vitality and energy levels are great right now, but they're not going to be like that forever. So that's the first that was the first thing in the bucket list that I managed to check off. And in fact, we're going to go back next year, I think, and do it again because it was so much fun the last time. We've got some travel ambitions, my bride and I, and my daughter and her fiance. We have some travel ambitions. We're currently working on a trip that will take us perhaps down to New Zealand. We tend to do our travel choices would involve stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit different from the ordinary bus tour or boat cruise. So I think we'll find some adventures when we get down to New Zealand, which has been on my list all the way from university days when I rode motorcycles with a guy from New Zealand who was living here in Calgary. And as to the balance of the bucket list, I'm not sure what it is. I tend not to be too much of a bucket list guy.
Yes. Okay. So what is the most important lesson you've learned from your experiences so far in life?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. I guess the most important lesson would be don't take yourself too seriously. I do. Don't think that you are the most precious flower in the universe, because you're not. Celebrate your successes, which I have not been great at doing. Understand that we, in our career, certainly have an opportunity to live in abundance. So live that way. And by that, I mean, live in abundance, be generous with your time and with your resources, because you can replace certainly your resources, and what else will you do with your time unless it's in service of others? So I think those are the types of big lessons I've learned. The other lessons I've learned is that we're all the same. We are all insecure. We all need someone to provide us with confidence and clarity. And when people provide us with confidence and clarity, it's a tremendous gift they've given us, because all of us wake up in the middle of the night with voices of uncertainty and fear. We don't know what we don't know. We can't see ahead, and that causes us to stress. So having a colleague or an advisor or a friend to help us gain some confidence and clarity is exceptional, and that's a big offering. So I think that what you do and what I do and what other advisors in our business do is we provide that for people. I think that's a great service. So, I don't know. How about that for some lessons? I don't know what they are, but.
Wow, that's fabulous. If you died last night, what would you be proudest of having accomplished in your life?
Well, probably raising my daughter. This is no time to get emotional, Dale. She's a cool kid, and I would say that she'd be my greatest accomplishment, if it is, and not like it's my accomplishment, but yeah, she'd be the best part of my life to this point in time. She's a great young woman, fabulous future, and I'm very proud of her. She's just turned out so wonderfully. Is it nature or nurture? I just don't know, but I'll take some of the credit. So my greatest accomplishment would be my family and my daughter, for sure.
Wow, Dale, I think you're living proof of integrity and depth and creativity and generosity and warmth. And I've had an absolutely wonderful time with you. Far too short. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your heart and your honesty with us.
Well, you flatter me as I say, Julian. Thank you very much. And boy, was I ever glad when you were able to do this interview with me, because I think you and I have always had a really great relationship, even though it hasn't been frequent. Every time we have the connection, it's a really good one. So thank you very much, Julian. You're a great guy.
You're welcome, and I'll flip it back over to His Royal Highness Lawrence, also a J.G. Taylor Award winner.
And very deserving.
Thank you, Julian. And thank you, Dale. Excellent information. Dale, you've talked about your physical fitness, and how important that is to you. You've talked about your benevolent activities. And by that, I mean the activities for which you don't charge, that you provide to the community, to the association, to the profession. And you've talked about sales. How do your business, how do they relate to each other? How does one influence what you do in the other?
Hard question, Lawrence. Well, I think they kind of connect in the following way. I'll start over with the fitness piece. I'm a man of a certain age. I hope I can continue to be healthy and well and vital and energetic all the way through until my health span and my lifespan are kind of right together and I just kind of drop off a cliff. So in the absence of consistent well-being, that is physical well-being, I wouldn't be able to do anything else in the two realms where I've gained the greatest amount from my activities and my work, namely the realm of sales and professional activities as a financial advisor, and in the realm of community service. You can't serve your community from a hospital bed. And it's very, very hard to be an active financial advisor if you're a cardiac cripple. So I couldn't execute on those two aspects of my life if I wasn't looking after myself. I'm an evangelist for, and I know you are as well, Lawrence, I'm an evangelist for health and fitness and well-being. We only have one body. It's got to carry us all the way through this life. And our families, our clients, our friends are counting on us to be there for them and with them in a meaningful way. So looking after ourselves makes a tremendous amount of sense. So I've adopted that mantra, and hopefully it pays off. I do think that at this point in my life, I'm receiving dividends from the years of fitness preceding today. So I'm enjoying dividends now. I have health and vitality. I am capable of doing a lot, and I don't think I'm old before my time. So, you know, having energy as we are in this, in the final chapters of our life, having plenty of energy and capability is really what we desire. And it's a question of just putting in a limit of that effort at the gym or on the bike. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, Lawrence.
It's an excellent answer.
So it was a trick question.
Well, wasn't intended as such. You've talked about all of your mentors and the role that they've had in your life and your career. Do you mentor others?
I think I do. I hear that from some folks that I do. When I have an interaction with folks, sometimes I hear myself rattling on and I think, oh, you overbearing, pompous, boring guy, shut the hell up and let this person talk. But then sometimes I get nice feedback back, not about me, but about the contribution. I have purposely become part of that mentoring organization that I mentioned earlier on for that very same reason, to provide some coaching and mentoring. And I believe in the past I have provided some mentoring. But Lawrence, to your point, I think in that regard, maybe I haven't discharged my responsibilities very well because I think I've got some experience and stuff to offer. But having persisted as a solo operator in a changing world, I don't get the opportunity very often to actually sit down with somebody who's comparatively new in their career, and who are trying to establish themselves, to have a sharing conversation with them. So, maybe that was, like I say, I think that was a mistake to be too much of a solo.
You think mentors find the people they mentor, or the people who need mentoring find the mentors?
I don't know that. I think if you're not available, if you haven't made yourself available, then nobody will find you, whether you're looking for them or they're looking for you. But I said earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I think to a degree that may be true. We may stumble upon each other over time, but I think it's important for both the mentor and the mentee to raise their hands and say, "Hey, listen, I'm out here." So otherwise, how do we know?
I think that's perfectly true. And I think you're right about being out there. I think it's partially that people have to look as well, because today there are all sorts of other avenues other than face to face. There's the internet, there are social media sites, and I think maybe people should look at those. Next week, we're going to take a week off. I hope that the viewers will accept that the Labor Day week may not be the right time to have one of these meetings, and we'll resume the following week rather. I thank you, Dale Enns, for providing your wisdom and your experience to us. And really, you are one of the greats in our business. You've been involved in most of the things that I've been aware of over the years at Advocis. I've seen you at CALU year after year, and I know that you've contributed and met with others. And I thank you, Julian, another person who mentors others with love and affection, which is something not all of us are capable of. Many of us are grumpy old men, but not Julian Wise. So thank you, and thank you, Krista, for providing us with technical expertise. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks.